Alright. I have some other things I need to do tonight, but I felt like this was something I needed to address. So, if you don't know me, hi, hello, my name is Ben. Uh, and before we jump into the meat of this controversy, I do want to say this. These kinds of arguments that just never find a peaceful resolution are stupid. Like, clearly both sides are adamant about their respective positions, and if we're being realistic, neither side is just going to be like, oh, actually, yeah, you right, fam, I'm wrong. Like, no, that's not going to happen. And if we're still being realistic, neither side wants this to come to an end by simply dropping the whole thing altogether and acting like it never happened. We need to resolve this drama, and the only way that this can happen is if both sides work together and try to find a rational middle ground. That is the point of this video. With that out of the way, let's talk about what's going on. A league changed the rules in the middle of a game, and Duncan calls them out for it on Twitter. Yes, I think we can all agree that changing the rules and lying like that is really stupid, and I think we can also agree that just because this one league does something dumb does not mean that every other league does the same thing. To quote a good friend of mine, if I see a basketball game and everyone is wearing pink shoes, does that mean every single basketball player to ever exist always wears pink shoes? No, of course not. That's a stupid assumption to make. Are we in agreement so far? Yes? Awesome. Alright, so the big thing to me is Marin Varen's response to Duncan on Twitter. Like, I love Marin. He's the GOAT. But I agree that what he said was rude and uncalled for. But his behavior doesn't mean that he should be cast out and banned by the rest of the community. Should he be, like, expelled from school or lose his job? No. Should he be disowned by his family and friends? No. Because tweeting something rude and disrespectful in this context is not a capital offense. I think what bugs me the most is when Duncan suggested kicking Marin out of the community, just like we did Nappy. Since when does being rude equal pedophilia? Like, Nappy is a pedophile. That is an actual crime, and it is seriously messed up. Marin said something disrespectful. It wasn't slanderous, and it certainly wasn't anything criminal. Again, I do not condone his behavior, but Marin cannot be compared to Nappy. But let's keep talking about this idea of kicking Marin from the Draft League community. Do we want to drain the swamp, so to speak? Do we want to kick out all of the quote-unquote bad people? Show me a large group of people without any flaws, and I'll show you a community that doesn't exist. There has never been any sort of organization or community filled with perfect people. I don't want to get political here, but this is a good analogy. Make America great again. Some people will argue that America was never great. Look at, like, slavery, for example. That's horrible. But other people can argue that they're confusing the words great with perfect. Like, of course, no country has ever been perfect. America can be seen as great in comparison to other countries. So how do we make the Draft League community great in comparison to other communities? Well, maybe it's already fine as it is. Yes, I agree. There are definitely people who have a tendency to behave in a manner that is conceived as toxic. Again, every community has people like this, and some to a worse degree than others. Like, from my experience with other communities, the Pokemon community is not great. But again, no community can be perfect. So then, my question is, where would we draw the line if we tried to remove all the toxicity from the community? So let's suppose we were to kick Marin Varen from the Pokemon community as a whole. Like, he's not allowed in any more leagues at all. He is, like, universally banned. See, that idea in and of itself doesn't hold much water because you can't really universally ban someone from Pokemon Draft League since, you know, no one really owns Draft Leagues. But let's just suppose that that kind of thing is possible. So if Marin is kicked, then who else would go next? Like, where do we draw the line? And I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I'm hungry. It's time for a snack break. There is nothing wrong with eating cereal at 2 a.m. If any given person in any given community does something seriously wrong, like, I don't know, being a pedophile, something that can get them in trouble with the law, like being a pedophile, then yes, it's totally understandable to kick them out and treat them like an outcast. Because they have done something truly wrong. Now, I could go on a tangent here talking about, like, forgiveness and Jesus' parable of the prodigal son, but I'm not going to get off track with that. Just mentioning it gives you guys the idea of what direction I would be headed. But back to what we were just talking about. If I walked up to any given person on the street and said, "Hey, you look stupid, and I don't agree with your opinions, and I think you should give up on all your hopes and dreams," would I be arrested for that? No. It's mean and uncalled for, sure, but my family and friends wouldn't treat me as an outcast. I wouldn't be expelled from school, assuming that person I insulted wasn't, like, the principal. And I wouldn't be kicked out of the draft league community. So let's take another step back. Duncan, I understand your position better than I think you could ever imagine. Long story short. A few years back, I would always find myself getting into arguments with a sub-community of the Pokemon community, which shall not be named. I had some pretty unpopular opinions, and I always found myself under attack because I wanted to stand up for what I believed was right. Now, back to the present. Duncan, you saw something happen in a draft league that was really dumb. Nobody can deny that you caught them cheating, and I have mad respect for that, truly. Nobody can say that you were in the wrong, but if anyone takes personal offense to what you say as you expose them, they will fight back. I agree. Cheating is stupid. I think most people can agree with that. Changing the rules like that in the middle of the season to affect the outcome of that one game, that's stupid. The rules themselves are not necessarily stupid, and if they are, a good league will fix them for following seasons. But I digress. I think the general idea I'm trying to get across is that the exception doesn't write the rule. Duncan, your first interaction with the Showdown Draft League community was that exception. The vast majority of leagues don't do anything messed up like that, and if they do, they're almost definitely a league that's, like, not well known and not particularly respected by the community. I understand why you would make that assumption, because this has been your only experience with Showdown leagues. First impression is everything. You were vocal about this first impression. Marin knows that this case is an outlier, and he wanted to let you know that. And now, we've all heard of you before, Duncan, and we've heard of your past controversies that, like, you've been involved in. Of course, I absolutely do not want to open that can of worms right now. But to put it simply, a lot of people have negative opinions of you. However, I like to take a neutral approach to people I haven't personally interacted with, because we're all human, and that's what makes us special. Everyone is a human being, and I respect that. However, it's only natural for people to act hostile towards someone that they don't like saying something that they believe is wrong. Again, I cannot condone Marin's behavior, but I think there is more than one party to blame for all of this drama. At the end of the day, we're all human. That's how this whole thing started. That's why the world will never be perfect. Because we're human. And that's okay. With all that out of the way, I hope we can all be friends and move on with our lives. I hope I didn't come off as being too hostile or anything. I just know that acting in that hostile manner just makes matters worse and doesn't resolve anything. So thanks for listening to me ramble on like this. I hope we can reach a middle ground and bring this whole mess to a satisfactory conclusion. Good night, friends.